vocational training centers, if you like, TVETs, these are centers that are responsible for preparing our young people with the knowledge, not only the knowledge, but also looking at practical skills needed in today's economy. But beyond that, we also need to develop the literacy and numeracy base of our young people. I had a program where I invited 30 young people, most of them were university graduates, for internship in the UK just before COVID. And I was so embarrassed by the employers that most of them couldn't write reports. Poor grammar, poor communication skills, poor literacy skills. And the question you ask is that what kind of education are we giving our young people? What kind of system is it that we are not developing young people with a high literacy and communication skills? And for that reason, when they come to Europe or they come to other Western countries, they struggle. They have to be retrained in order to function. So it's very important that we develop the skills that the economy needs. The world is changing rapidly. In fact, through artificial intelligence, Dr. Bachman mentioned that automation, renewable energy, biotechnology, and digital transformation. And Africa cannot afford to prepare young people, students, for yesterday's job. We can't do that. We are in the 21st century. These days, some of you who travel, you may realize that at the airport, the number of people at the till, at the checkout, are limited now. It's now self-check. So if you sit there and your mind is that I'm going to be there for the next 15, 20 years, you are a joker. Your job is gone. You have to retrain. So the world is changing. Technology is taking over. Information technology, artificial intelligence, all these things are taking jobs. However, it's also creating jobs here in the UK, which is one of the leading countries in artificial intelligence. Our educational system here in the UK is changing. Last month, over 1 million young people in UK are NEETs. NEETs mean not in education, not in training, not in employment, which is serious, even a developed country like UK. So we are restructuring and re-vibrating in terms of putting energy into our educational system to create more entrepreneurship. Someone mentioned that. And TVET to get skills. So the first thing I want to say is that in our educational system, in our institutions, skills development is paramount to our development. In 2009, just to make reference.
Let me take the opportunity to indicate that we have about 3 minutes to go, sir. Thank you.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make here is that we need to develop skills in our young people. It's really important that without those things, we cannot move forward as a country. So our institutions need to work on that. Now, the other point is that we also need to develop, a system where we create innovations and research. Now, tell me, recently we had flooding in Ghana, and shocking. I was just looking at KAMA, Accra Metropolitan Authority, someone just standing on the roadside directing drivers that do not travel this direction because it's flooding. How on earth can we have universities in Ghana with PhD professors? We cannot develop an app that drivers can access on their phones to locate flooded areas. It's unimaginable. It's so sad. So what are we doing as a country? In all the research that we do, we cannot even create apps to identify flood areas to prevent people from going there. And people were dying. This is the kind of system I think we need to start looking at. Innovators, creativity, innovations. That is what we need. That's what our centers have to be doing. And also, we also need to look into entrepreneurship. Every young person at the University of Ghana I interviewed want to work in an office. Well-paid job. There's nothing wrong with that. World Bank reported 3 years ago that the only solution in solving unemployment in Africa is not about government creating jobs, it's about entrepreneurship. So our educational institutions need to incorporate, they have to embed entrepreneurship as a compulsory course. Romania in Europe is the only country who started doing that and is yielding results. So we need to encourage entrepreneurship within our educational system. Now, we also look at unity, ethical leadership, and responsibility. Our educational institutions need to talk about this, teach our young people all these things. Now, Africa is incredibly, diverse. We saw what happened in South Africa, the xenophobia or Afrophobia, or whatever you call it, divisions among ourselves. We need to develop ethical leaders. Dr. Bachman talked about that we need responsible leadership. We need responsible citizens. People can have informed, get information to make informed decisions. So one of the things that institutions can also do is also to look into producing leadership who are responsible and also responsible citizens. Now, because of my time, which is so short, I just want to finally look at this, that we also need to embrace technology and digital transformation. Now, it's very, very crucial that we start developing that digital literacy. And digital literacy also creates jobs for our young people. Look at the number of people who are making money out of the internet, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and all these platforms. We need to develop that digital literacy. And technology has transformed how we learn and communicate in every sphere of our lives. So if we want to develop as a nation, as a continent, these areas must be looked into. And I think that we have the capacity to do that. We just need to change our educational system, a system that works for Ghana, not inviting or borrowing or using Western style of systems to solve problems that are not meant for Africa.
Absolutely.
And that is what I'm thinking that we need to look into. I'm ready to take questions, later on regarding some of the things that I've mentioned.